lot of layoffs, a lot of store closures, a lot of things that's happening in society prior to Trump becoming the president of the United States of America. Make sure that you hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's rock.
Fox 5 watching your wallet tonight, and a big player in the auto parts game about to close more than 500 stores and, of course, cut jobs along with it.
So we're talking about Advance Auto Parts. Fox 5's Kendall Green takes a look under the hood to find out why and if this could spell bigger trouble for the auto parts industry.
Advance Auto Parts joins the growing list of retailers rolling back, announcing closures of more than 700 stores, including 523 corporate shops, 204 independent locations, and 4 distribution centers.
No, it don't surprise me.
Folks like Terrence, who hasn't been in one for more than 2 years, gets why.
I have an Audi, so I just go to Audi for everything I need.
The dealership?
Yeah, the dealership.
After revealing their last quarter's performance, the major chain's shares dropped 5%. Now the company's CEO shares the cuts are a part of creating value among shareholders.
I hate corporate speak. I hate corporate ease. Corporate ease is the worst. Hey, listen, we're paring back to be more efficient. We're closing 700 stores so that we can add more value to the shareholders. No, you're closing because the business economic climate is absolutely trash. The Harris-Biden administration implemented some mandates that's ultimately destroying your business. Consumer tastes are changing, and Amazon is absolutely destroying your business. It's just the facts. And they're making cars different now to where they need less maintenance, which is basically eroding your bottom line.
Now, Advance Auto Parts' move to close hundreds of their stores are signs of the times, and mechanics here at United Auto Repairs have seen those times changing and tell us that's no surprise.
I could see them having hard times, especially with the COVID and everything else, and people not using the cars as much, and they're not breaking down as much. And like I said, a lot of people bought new cars.
The father-son mechanic duo shares those new cars.
New cars.
The father-son.
Yeah, they definitely been eating. Anyways, I don't want to distract from the story.
Mechanic duo shares those new cars comes with lengthy warranties, cutting into business for both auto parts stores and mechanics, as customers at times bypass them both. Not to mention smart cars, also reducing the need for traditional auto parts.
Yep.
If you don't have the volume of the cars breaking down as much, you really don't need that many places to sell you the parts. And there are probably a lot of places out there to sell them.
And also on top of that, you also have to factor in that, for example, if you're buying an electric vehicle, you don't need oil changes. You don't need spark plugs. You don't need, they have thousands of less parts that's in that car that they need in order to have that engine running. And so, you know, it kind of erodes an entire industry. And I can't even say that it's a bad thing or a good thing. That's just capitalistic times. You know, when people used to have trolleys and when they went back to horses and people was afraid that the auto industry, a new industry was created as a result of it. And then you see auto parts stores pop up. In the same way that they used to have people that used to put horseshoes on the bottom of horses' feet. Now you see auto parts stores closing because you don't need as much maintenance for these people. So it's just it's a sign of the times, but also it's being incentivized by the Biden administration to push these people out of business. It just is what it is. It's a changing economic climate. But they're not the only people in the news lately. You also have General Motors. They are laying off over 1,000 people as people are seeing a shift from EV production.
On your block in Macomb County, where General Motors announced it will lay off 1,000 white-collar employees. This is the second layoff announced in as many months. CBS News Detroit's Gino Vici joins us from the GM Tech Center with more on those cuts.
It's funny because y'all saying a bike in the chat. I've recently had a mobile bike repair service come out to my place because I want them to make sure that they got the parts and that they order the parts in order to replace the bike. My bike, because I had got like a flat tire and it kind of messed up the back fender and stuff like that. And it was like, hey, this is what it's going to cost or whatever. And so it's whole new businesses that's popping up when other businesses are closing. And so you just got to keep that cycle and keep the American dollar moving. You got to incentivize new small businesses when you see new industries pop up. But it is tripped out because I didn't even know that they had a mobile bike service until Rita called one for me.
Well as the state of the auto industry as a whole as we gear up.
You ain't never seen no Tesla get an oil change, Julius. Stop. Stop. Y'all just be lying. He said he seen a Tesla get a Tesla what? A Tesla what? I seen a Tesla get oil change before. No, you didn't. Yeah, why y'all just gonna be lying like Julius? Come on. Bring yourself to the front of the car. That's why I don't be believing people. That's when people be saying stuff to me, I be like, Come on. Do you know how EVs work, Julius? Just be lying. Y'all got it. Y'all can't do that. I see just get what I was seeing when you shot the other day. You seen him getting the tires changed or the oil change? I'm gonna shoot you some bail.
For a Trump presidency.
Yes, the recent layoffs announced here at General Motors, not a good sign for the company, but it could also be a sign of the many challenges the auto industry is facing, like the EV dilemma, which hasn't worked out so well for Stellantis, Ford Motor Company, or General Motors. Auto industry experts say there is another looming issue on the horizon, and it can have far-reaching effects in the auto industry, and is coming under a Trump administration, and that is tariffs.
GM has had quite a shift in their strategy lately. As you know, they were all in on EVs.
Jan Griffiths with Gravitas Detroit says the recent layoffs at General Motors is perhaps a warning sign for the auto industry moving forward.
And when the EV demand didn't come through as we all expected, they had to change their strategy, and now they're looking at right-sizing their operations.
Griffiths says GM is likely not the only automaker that will be looking to right-size or shift their operations away from focusing so heavily on EVs.
Now, Stellantis is in a much worse situation.
Stellantis stock is down 40% in the U.S. and sales dropped 20% this quarter. And there is also another looming issue that could have a ripple effect in the automotive industry: Trump-era tariffs on foreign vehicles and parts from China.
And that too will have a ripple effect through.
And this, you know what this is of? This is of this current administration putting all of these mandates and going the way of California and trying to eliminate internal combustion engines. And what they did was they incentivized people to go and make these cars and all of these parts outside of the United States of America. And so they bet, and see, I don't even completely blame this on the companies. I do blame it on the companies, but I don't blame it on the companies entirely, because they were doing what the current administration was telling them to do, which was bet 100% of everything on EVs. And so they took research and development dollars that was then generated from inflated costs from selling all of these trucks at these super high prices to invest in EVs instead of letting the market naturally evolve over into a thing that people want or they don't want. And so they didn't let capitalism work. They tried to control the market. And now all of these automakers that decided that they wanted to hurry up and jump into something in particular, now they got to have a reckoning and an awakening, because you can't run out and start making a whole bunch of stuff outside of the United States of America and then steal American taxpayer dollars to do so, and then think that that's going to work out for you now that Trump is in office. No, make your stuff here. Go and have a conversation with him, like he said that Tim Cook had a conversation with him. And he said that Tim Cook asked for an exception. He gave him an exception as long as he continued to make and build a plant in the United States of America of Apple. And they did so in Texas. And so now it's the same thing that's happening when it comes to the automotive companies. You're going to have a hybrid solution or a hybrid approach to what you want to do, research and development, in order to make sure that things is happening here in the United States of America. And you need to make it here for Americans, with Americans' jobs, and having a dollar circulating inside of the United States of America. But they're not the only people laying off. I see my dog, Daddy Day Trips, is in there. Boeing is laying off 17,000 workers in Oregon and Washington.
Boeing machinists in Washington state recently voted to end a strike that lasted weeks and cost the major manufacturer billions. It's going to be a short-lived victory, however. Boeing plans to cut 17,000 jobs and 10% of their workforce. On Tuesday, thousands of employees returned to work under a new labor contract that includes raises each year for 4 years.
Oh, 1,700, not 17,000. So they got a typo. I did think, like, man, they got 17,000 workers over there in Oregon and Washington.
Years. It will still be some weeks before the plants in Washington and Oregon resume production. The workforce reduction announcement now adds uncertainty for employees. So far, Boeing officials have declined to say which job titles will be impacted during the layoff.
GM is not owned by the government.
It's hard to say right now. They're not really saying who's getting laid off.
And I'm waiting for tomorrow. I can't wait till tomorrow, and then I can find out if I have a job or not, and then how my team's impacted.
That is so, man, I used to hate Hate them days to where you was always paying attention to what was going on in the industry, as you didn't know if you was going to be affected. And that's what it used to be like inside of the plant. Oh man, it was a terrorist attack. I don't know what's going to go off. We got to get laid off. Oh man, there was a pandemic. Oh man, it's a recession. Oh man, the steel industry is getting cheap steel dumped in by China. We got to get laid off. I hated that feeling in that pit in my stomach.
So the FAA has put a cap on it at $38 a month. So now, you
can't even buy nothing. You can't even be free. You can't even go and buy a new car because you don't know if you're going to be able to pay that 60-month payment. You can't go and get a house without being fearful about losing your job.
Those people hoping the production would get back up to 58, but now they're capped at 38, so they got kind of a surplus there.
The engineer you just heard from thought machinists and other frontline workers would be safe from these cuts, but he can see scenarios where they could be let go. The last day of work for whatever workers do end up getting released will be January 17th.
That's messed up. Right after Christmas, right after the holidays, don't run up too much debt, and diversify. And when I say diversify, I'm not talking about your investments. I'm talking about your skill set. I think that y'all should be always working on something new, something greater, something better, while you are in a position that you're in. Don't get a good job and then just rest on your hands and sit tight and say, oh man, I'm gonna be all right, I'm gonna be good. No, you're not. No, you're never good. And even if you are always good, take the approach that you're never good. That way you never getting caught with your pants down. You always on top of it. You always building a new skill set. And worst case scenario, you actually just graduate into the next position or go into something different, a new industry, and you get a bigger bag as a result of it, or you can do both at the same time. But never just rest on your laurels and wait for something to happen to you, hoping that you can make it in the industry for the next 30 years. That's over. That's dead. Even the people back in the day, back in the plants and the manufacturing plants, they would regularly getting laid off every other year or something like that. And that's how they called the membership within the UAW. That's how the things got lowered as far as natural attrition, because the people was always scared about whether or not they was going to get laid off. It was good times and it was bad times. It was boom and it was bust. So never depend on a manufacturer or never depend on an industry to stay sufficient for the entirety of your lifetime. Always be having something in the fire. Always be working on something. Always be having self-improvement. Always be prepared for the next transition. Always be focused on diversifying your skill set so that you don't find yourself at the mercy of somebody else, but you can determine your own path. All right?